Three Nephites, what's up? I know, man. I think that's what we're all waiting for.
What's up?
Man, this is a day that I've been waiting for since we started this podcast.
You are listening to Saints in the South.
All right, welcome to another episode of Saints in the South, number 41. 41. Hey, don't forget, we are Saints in the South, and we do represent saints
everywhere.
That's right. Everywhere.
The whole world.
Or nowhere. Some people might listen to us and think that you don't represent.
That's right. You don't represent.
Y'all are
actually
weird.
represent anybody. Yeah.
Hey, we are getting close to closing out our T-shirt order. We are going to be offering a couple different colors in addition to the black. So be looking for that on our social media and everything. So be one of the first to sport the gold microphone right there you see in the background.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Good.
Hey, yeah, that's right. A little close up. There you go. This week, there could not be a happier people. 3rd Nephi, chapter 27 through 4th Nephi, which is one chapter.
Yep.
And we'll go ahead and jump in here. Here in chapter 27, the first few verses there, mentions the disciples. They had been, preaching what they had been taught from the Savior. They've been going about, but they were in a time where they were united in mighty prayer and fasting, and Jesus ends up appearing to them, and he essentially says, "What's up?"
Yeah. It's like, what's going on here, guys?
What's going on here? What do you need? What do you need here?
I mean, how cool is that?
That's right. Yeah.
Appears and he's there and he's like, all right, guys, what's up, man? What y'all need?
So they explain, they say, look, we got a situation. We're curious as to what the name of the church should be called. And
good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's legit.
I mean, sure. Pretty legit.
Right. And he responds, he says, he basically says, well, have you not read the scriptures? Have they not read the scriptures? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
Anything, go ahead.
I was going to say, it was really kind of the people were the ones that were kind of.
That's right. It is the people
disputing. And weren't really the disciples. I mean, they knew too, probably, yeah, we probably should call this something, it was kind of the people that sort of started this up. They're kind of like, hey, what's up? What we supposed to call ourselves here?
That's right. Yep.
So.
Yeah, and Christ basically says that, remember, anything that you do, and you do it in my name, that which is righteous, and you call yourselves, and you do it through me, through my name, praying to the Father. So anything you do in the name of Jesus Christ. He says, if this is Moses' church, you go call it, Church of Moses, or any other man. He said, but it's not man's church, it's my church, therefore the Church of Jesus Christ. So that kind of gets us kick-started. What were some of the things that jumped out to y'all?
So to go off with the church, just a few years ago, President Russell M. Nelson reminded us there in Dr. Covenant's 115.4 that the church today is the church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I'm trying to go away from the Mormon phrase or the nickname and LDS church or anything like that.
Yeah.
So as I was reading more about that, never thought about it, but in a sense, obviously it's the church of Jesus Christ, but the part I always forget is of Latter-day Saints. So, through Jesus Christ, Jesus, who is perfect, opens up the ownership and makes it joint with us. So it's our church. We're not non-residents going into a unknown place. I mean, this is Jesus Christ's church, but of Latter-day Saints. So never thought about it that way. Never thought about this is our church.
Yeah.
Through Jesus Christ. He is the perfect one. We are the imperfect ones. And I've had someone tell me, as a kid, I remember I have someone who I'm close to said, man, it's a perfect church ran by imperfect people, you know. And so how great is that? And so how many organizations, global organizations, worldwide groups have Jesus Christ in their name, you know, and he makes it whole, you know, he makes it. So anyway, I just like, you know, that word of the church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
So,
you know, the church is the people, you know, the church isn't, and if there's ever been a time in, at least in our lifetime, obviously, you know, we can't really speak, we haven't lived many lifetimes, obviously, but we do notice that, especially during this pandemic, that the church really is the people. It's not a building, you know,
exactly.
it's not a, and so, as a matter of fact, I sort of wish we could use better rhetoric when we talk about the church, like, hey, let's meet up at the church. And it's just the way that we say things, you know, we know what we mean. We actually mean the building, the chapel, you know, is what, you know, I guess would be more appropriate, but that's, you know, like you're saying, Andrew, we're the church, the people is the church.
And you know, there's an old, so how often in church, or how often when you go to the chapel in a testimony meeting, you'll hear, I know this church is true, or you'll hear, I know the gospel is true.
Right.
And in a sense, it's, you know, the church is the vehicle, but the gospel is the engine that carries that vehicle, you know. Yeah. And an old
the
Greek
driver
phrase,
is Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Church
all the way through.
An old Greek phrase, church is the Lord's home, and gospel, all you know, is means what? Good stories and message. But yeah, I like you know, how often does the church change? You know, the wallpaper, furniture, rules.
Wallpaper? What?
I mean,
were you living in 1974? Man,
back when Andrew joined in 1968.
So I've never seen a chapel with wallpaper. Are you older than we thought?
But hey, I've been.
He's one of the three Nephites.
Hey, we'll get to that in a minute.
Hey,
foreshadowing.
There's a fourth one right here that's anyways. We've been doing some remodeling around the house, and I know, like, my kids last few days, we got a new couch. They're like, man, why you get rid of that new couch? That's our childhood memories. And it's just nitpick stuff. Stuff. Things change, update. But the actual gospel never changes. That's the message of Jesus Christ stays the same. But, you know, sometimes the rules, the church itself, the vehicle has updates. But
yeah, I think you got the church, you got the chapel, and you've got, you know, the gospel, or you got, I mean, there's all these little separate entities that sometimes we want to bunch together and make it, and in reality, and rightfully so, in a lot of cases, it should be all joined together as, you know, cohesive and works together for the same thing. But yeah, I mean, it's like you say, the church is the people are the church. The people are the church. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yeah, and he allows us to take part in it for our growth. And because I think we probably all got some good points from Book of Mormon Central once again. As always, check them out, y'all. Book of Mormon Central. Yeah, they're
absolutely
awesome. But yeah, like, I thought it was a really good point that Christ allows us to be part, because obviously he could be, you know, who'd be the best bishop or the best stake president or the best ministering brother, any of these things. Obviously, you know, he could step in and do any calling infinitely better than any of us could ever do.
Right.
But he allows us to do these things for our personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's right. Pretty awesome thing.
That's what it's for, is for us to become the best people we can become. You know, as him.
And just touching on something Andrew said earlier about how we reference ourselves or how other people reference us in these latter days. I remember when a couple years ago when President Nelson said that we need to undertake this cause of trying to really focus on the name of the church, you know, and I remember him talking about, you know, all his advisors and technology people saying, listen, it's too late, you know, as far as technically you can't change or put an emphasis on the name of the church at this point, as far as in changing the websites and things like that.
You can't.
We've been doing this for too long.
Yeah.
What's that?
you can't essentially rebrand it. At this point.
Exactly.
Like, everything's so embedded. Yeah, but it's crazy how it worked. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And if y'all remember when he made that announcement, I mean, we watched real time. Like, Megan and I pulled out our phones, and all of a sudden, like everything, that had redirected, and there was these different URLs, and we're like, wow, that was quick.
Yeah, they've been prepping that for a while. Yeah,
he's like Captain Picard. It's like, make it so.
He's the prophet.
It's tough though. I would have to say though, it is how much more powerful it is to say you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints versus
it is.
saying, hey, I'm the Mormon Church. But I have people. I will say it, and people's like they'll start thinking, and
yeah, they're trying to figure it out. It's like, wait, what church is that now? And you have to go. We're also known as the Mormons. You have to sort of throw that in there. So and they're like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Or like
over there on Central
Avenue.
Now,
but now you go, but we're all the Mormons.
Yeah,
the Mormons.
Well, you'll see on social media. Oh man, the Wi-Fi's out. I saw the other day, man. Is anybody's Wi-Fi out over there by the Mormon Church? Just talk about the area.
Yeah.
So
that happened. Yeah, on the Cherokee Heights page. Yeah, we have a neighborhood page that. Yeah, some people were doing that recently. So, are you on that same page? You don't live in my neighborhood.
I don't live in your neighborhood, but I'll watch your neighborhood.
There you go. You obviously
neighborhood
do.
Watch. Neighborhood watch. He don't sleep at night. So what else is he going to do?
You must be watching my wallpaper too. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. I can't give you a hard time about that. I still have wallpaper in my house. Man, I bought my house hadn't been updated since the 70s. It was built in the 70s, and there's got some wallpaper in here that's probably hadn't been updated since then.
Man, it's coming back around, man. Just hang in there.
Exactly.
It'll come back in style eventually.
But getting back to this scripture, I wanted to make mention one thing on that chapter 8 about the church, name of the church. A lot of people will skip over this because, number one, the name of the church must be important to the Savior. And this is what Elder James E. Talmage wrote. This is in Jesus the Christ, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Jesus the Christ, which is an excellent book, by the way. If you want to find a book to read and really read for a while and expand your vocabulary, get Jesus the Christ by James E. Talmage. He says, down to the third decade of the 19th century, which would have been 1830s, if my math is correct, it says there was no church on earth affirming with the name or title as the Church of Jesus Christ. There was no church on the earth up to that point with the name, the Church of Jesus Christ. And so I thought that was very interesting. Now, having said that, I know that there are many churches today that profess the name Jesus Christ. And so now you can the antis can come along and say, oh, well, what say ye of that? I mean, I'm sure they don't speak that way, but they're probably saying, because you see them, there's the Church of Christ, there's the Church of Jesus Christ. I've seen that. There's Jesus Christ's Holy Sanctuary or whatever. There's all kind of names now with Jesus Christ in the title of churches. But here's the kicker. It's still there in verse 8, because at the very end of the verse it says, after he says everything, he said, but if it be called in my name, then it is my church. And then he says, if it so be that they are built upon my gospel. So it's still there. So there's more to it than just the name, right? It's, we're not built upon the gospel, which is more than just lip service, but a belief system and a way of life. So it's not just a name. We have to have the correct principles, the correct teachings, the correct, and so that's the two things joined together. It's that whole thing where we need to put those things together, that it's actually the belief system. It's not just the name of the church. So
I like that.
Anyway,
I like that.
I thought it was pretty interesting because, a lot of people, I have actually heard that argument. It's like, oh, well, what about this church? My grandparents go to this church. So is that the true church? Because you say it right here. But the Lord is perfect, and he throws in what he needs to throw in right there at the end. So anyway,
that doesn't necessarily mean that there's are anything wrong.
No, nothing wrong with those churches.
Because there's some really, really good people that are
absolutely
good things, and it's it is interesting. I guess
it's interesting,
and people do sometimes take offense that those of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints claim to be the church that Christ,
Oh yeah.
There's other people that follow Christ to the very best of their ability and are amazing.
That's
people,
right.
But it's
and those
there's something
people
unique about the what we call the church.
Yep, exactly. And actually, they bring a good point, Kenny. That word "the" is probably one of the most important words other than Jesus Christ in that whole title, is because it is the actual original New Testament church, or however people say it. When he organized it, it's the way that it was organized. And the main thing is that the things, the priesthood, the proper authorities there, and the covenants that we need are there. So. No. One thing I wanted to make mention is how important are the scriptures? How do we sometimes overlook the scriptures to find answers that we need? We can sit there, and I'm not diminishing prayer. Obviously, prayer is super important, coupled with scriptures, etc. Sometimes, though, I think if we just crack that book open a little more, whether it be the Bible, the Book of Mormon, whatever it is, if we just crack those scriptures open a little more, sometimes we wouldn't have to be asking, which is basically what Jesus is telling them here.
That's right.
You wouldn't have to ask me this question if you would just think for a second, because I don't think he was accusing them like, you guys don't read your scriptures, but he's probably just saying, pay attention, just think about it for just a second. I really shouldn't have to be here to tell you this, but just look at this. And he points it out to them. But what I thought about was being in school, and my English teacher, one time I remembered and we were reading probably something like To Kill a Mockingbird or some kind of book we read or whatever it was, and I remember asking a question because I had not I was not this big reader guy, so I threw out this question. I actually, when he started explaining some things, I actually got intrigued. Then I was like, oh, wait a minute, I probably should have read this thing in the back of my mind. But then I remember asking a question. I was like, well, wait, what was so and so, whatever it was I asked. And he goes, well, Mr. Corbett, he said, if you'd read the book, because at that point he knew I hadn't read it.
Right.
He said, if you read the book, you wouldn't have to ask me that question. That's the first thing I thought about when I was reading this. And it's true. If I had just read the book, I would have been okay on that. That wouldn't have been an issue. And so that's sort of what he's saying here. We got to remember the scriptures, we can't neglect them when we look for answers. There's many ways we can receive answers, but all I'm saying is just try not to forget
scriptures. I mean, that's what they're there for. A large part. I mean, obviously it's a history, but it's also there to help us receive answers in our personal lives, for sure.
Absolutely.
Three Nephites, what's up?
I know, man. I think that's what we're all waiting for.
What's up?
Man, this is a day that I've been waiting for since we started this podcast.
I hear you. That's right.
Get to talk about the three Nephites.
And I was like, okay, wow. What? And also, I've totally forgot, but the 9 didn't want to live till they were 99 or 88. It was 72. What's up with the age 72? I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, didn't Jesus tell them that they didn't request age 72 necessarily, but they were just like, hey, once we preached your word, we just want to go home. We don't want to be sticking around and get old. And so he's like, all right, 72 it is.
72 it is.
Make it so.
And I like how he lets them know that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with after having completed your mission here on this earth, to desiring to come and be with me. That's a good thing.
Yeah, he didn't say right or wrong. He just said blessed and more blessed. Basically, everybody's blessed. It's all good. You guys want righteous things. It's all good. So.
That's right. Because with the three Nephites, he points it out here. I know what you're thinking, right? He said because they appeared sorrowful.
They were hesitant. Yeah,
they were hesitant.
Yeah.
And
like,
you know how when you're getting ready to ask your mom and dad something, and you don't want to ask, you're like,
yeah,
you're scared what they might say or whatever.
Well, especially when all your siblings has already said they want something else, and now
that's right.
Because isn't that ultimate goal? It's to live with God. And then you got these three Nephites like, well, I ain't ready to live with you yet,
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, they might have thought he would be, he might have thought badly about that or something. They might have been scared that he'd be like, what are you thinking? You're supposed to go home. And, but the other ones, actually, I want to make a note too. 72 years old at that time isn't the same as 72 today. Like people's lifespans today are considerably longer than they have really been in any part in history, except for Old Testament times,
the very beginning.
But the very beginning.
Right.
So 72 at that time might have been 90 today or something basically.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
So would they? Or real quick on the 9, like you were saying, Kenny, 72 years old. So they wish they could speedily come into the kingdom. So did they skip the spirit world?
Oh,
Are you telling or are you asking?
I'm asking. I'm asking.
that's
Marcus.
a good question.
I know.
Yeah.
Actually, no.
Marcus, you had the answer, yes or no?
Well,
So what are you saying? Are you saying are they going to go to the spirit world?
Because they
Is that
said
what you're saying?
speedily. Well, here, let me go back to the verse.
Oh, you're talking about the 9.
The 9. So the
I
9
got you.
wish that they could. Let's go back and I'm asking.
So are you saying that they'd skip paradise and just go straight to
His presence, I
the
guess.
celestial kingdom or somewhere? I've never actually thought about.
I've
that.
never really
That's a
thought of
good
that because
question.
I always focus more on the 3 than the 9. So yeah, that's a great question.
That's a great question.
That they should never taste. Oh, hold on, I'm trying to.
Oh,
find
Jackson's got it. Jackson's got it.
got the answer right here, baby.
You got the answer right here, baby.
Jack.
Here we go. You're learning here live with us. Here we go.
He says in verse 3, "Blessed are ye because ye desire this thing of me. Therefore, after that ye are 72 years old, ye shall come unto me in my kingdom. With me ye shall find rest."
Ooh. I see something.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
The answer is yes to you. Is that what you said?
Yeah, the answer is yes.
I think it's yes too because
I do
click
too.
on click on kingdom footnote.
Yeah, and it's different. That's different than what he said to the thief on the cross, because at this point he was already
paradise.
resurrected. He had already. So yeah, with the thief on the cross, he said, "This day you'll be with me in paradise." And that was obviously that was was he had not yet ascended to the Father, had not been resurrected, and he was going to the spirit world. But
right.
This is different because he wasn't. He had already been resurrected, and when he left him, he wasn't going to be. He's going to be going straight back home.
Yeah. It's actually got for the topical guide. When you click on kingdom, it goes to like make election sure and exaltation and all that. And so that's pretty much what it's saying. You're basically, you're good to go.
So that was their desire.
Obviously, right. They still had their choice and their agency. They could have not gotten that if they chose a different route. If they went Judas or something, that way. Yeah. But they did. Obviously, they still had to endure what I'm getting to. They couldn't have just went off and sat under the shade tree for the next however long, 50 years. They do still have to do their part. But they pretty much made their election sure, as we've heard that phrase. And so that's what that was. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
That's a good question. That was good.
Yeah.
That's actually really cool. Threw a little twisty on me there, a little M. Night Shyamalan on me there. I weren't looking for
Everybody
that.
Everybody concentrates on the 3 about how about the 9,
That's
right,
true.
Right. Yeah. The majority.
Man. That's why these conversations are great. So, everybody knows these aren't scripted. These are totally unscripted.
Man, we are totally.
We usually make some, have some little
We
notes,
should have called ourselves Saints Unscripted.
That's a good name. I like that.
We're a little late. Shout out to Saints Unscripted. They're awesome.
That's right. Man, they're super awesome.
How about the 3? Well, go ahead, Jackson.
Yeah, so I was just going to mention. So with the 3, he provides comfort and reassurance to them by saying, "I know your thoughts, and by the way, you're not the first one to request that. My buddy John the Beloved. He's already got that request in. So yes, you can do that too."
I bet they were kind of like, really? Like, where's he at?
Hey, that's a prime example how how you think you had this great idea and you're like, man, I guarantee nobody's thought of that before.
Yeah, right.
And then all of a sudden you find out like everybody's thought of it.
I bet they were kind of like, I just thought we were the cool. I thought we were the coolest.
Yeah.
Dang it. Somebody already beat us to it.
Yep.
But seriously though, man, and with the 3 Nephites, so the movie Wolverine, right? I don't remember which one it is.
There's a few of them, right?
There's with X-Men and stuff.
You got 7 guesses.
They show him, at different times throughout the world, the different wars and everything.
Yeah.
Just think, what have those guys seen? What have they been involved in? It's very intriguing.
I mean, look, check out verse 26. This is Mormon speaking as he's compiling this stuff. He says, "But behold, I have seen them, and they have ministered unto me." That's 400 years later.
Right.
They're still there. And that's just a small. They're still there. I mean, how much longer has it been since Mormon was there? I mean, it's been what 1,200 years or no? What am I saying?
2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be.
Years,
I don't think most people could handle that. Honestly, I don't think they.
It's very mind blowing.
It's kind of reminds me of. I mean, I know this isn't very scriptural, but of the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. I don't know if anybody's read those.
Yes.
Like one of the themes, I used to love those books. Man, I read all of them. But one of the cool themes to me, those I always found really interesting, is that these vampires, when they're created, usually after they've lived for maybe just 200 or 300, they kind of start going crazy. Yeah. Because, once you live that long and you see the world change so much, it's like they can't handle it, and there's the time where Lestat, when Louis finds him, in his house, he's all curled up in a ball, and he's every time like he sees, headlights or something, he's freaking out and just screaming. He's been doing this for years and years and years, because, with the world change. I know for me, even just in the time that I've lived, seeing the world change, like I can't imagine being, people that are in their 90s today. Like I can't, like, how do they not lose their minds? Like, how do you not just go insane from seeing the world change so much? It just, I can't imagine living for 600 years, or 1,000 years. Imagine it's crazy.
So that very thought is addressed in here, Kenny. You know that? Verse 30.
If you read the book. No.
If you'd read the book, you wouldn't have to ask.
That's
that
right.
question.
If you'd read but that's a great lead up to that, though. Verses 38 and 39 says, "Therefore, that they might not taste of death, there was a change wrought upon their bodies, that they might not suffer pain nor sorrow, save it were for the sins of the world. Now this change was not equal to that which shall take place at the last day, but there was a change wrought upon them, insomuch that Satan could have no power over them, that he could not tempt them, and they were sanctified in the flesh, that they were holy, and that the powers of the earth could not hold them." So the only thing that he took that human element away, and I think that's exactly why, Kenny, because being here for this long, I think, and being susceptible to the mortality part of life, you would go crazy.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because I actually have seen that before, and I guess skimmed over it, not thinking it through. I thinking, obviously they're not going to get sick, and they're not going to have the same temptations that we are necessarily.
Right.
I hadn't really thought about that being a blessing to just guard against the stresses of living
life
in a world that's changing so much over centuries like that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, there's three things that people get. There's transfiguration, there's translation, and there's resurrection. And in this case, we're talking about translation. And translation is sort of a permanent state until you're resurrected. So you'll stay in this permanent state of you're still
you're
mortal.
a hybrid.
Yeah, you're sort of a hybrid. Exactly. That's pretty much the way it is. You're sort of a hybrid. Basically, you won't taste any pain or death until your resurrection. And then you have transfiguration, which some people get confused with translation. Mm-hmm. Transfiguration is the temporary. You're only transfigured, such as Joseph Smith, Moses, right, all these people that were in the presence of the Lord. You have to be changed to be able to stand in their presence. And so you're transfigured. So it's just temporary. And then you go back after the end of it, after the end of the vision or whatever's going on, you go back to your normal state. So transfigured is a temporary change. And then of course, resurrection is resurrection. I mean, that's a whole
to an immortal body. Yeah.
Right.
Very good.
That's good explanation. I'm glad you explained that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. There's some good, there's some confusion sometimes of what, these are resurrected beings. And so think of this. Peter, James, and John, right? Peter, James, and John restore the Melchizedek priesthood to Joseph Smith, and guess what? 2 resurrected beings, 1 translated being. Think about it. Peter, James, they're resurrected, and then John, which we just talked about, he's only translated at this point. So think that's pretty cool, right?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. And that is the same John.
Peter, James, and John, right? John the Beloved.
John the Beloved.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the same one. It's the disciples, the 3.
Right.
The 3. I don't want to say the 3 top disciples, but
right.
You know what
3
I'm saying?
amigos.
But,
right.
Yeah. Sort of the first presidency at the time after Christ left. So.
Hey, so why did the 3 want to stay alive?
They
What's
wanted
up?
to help as many people as they could, basically.
Exactly.
That's what they
That
said.
joy. Yeah. Yes. I was just
It
asking.
wasn't
the question.
selfish. Yeah.
Yeah. They
weren't
wanted,
selfish. Yeah.
and they truly found joy bringing souls into Christ, and that reference to Dr. Covenant's 18, 10. Remember the worth of souls is great in the sight of God, and bringing souls into into
Right.
Jesus Christ. So
on that point, Andrew, to the 9, the Lord told them that was a great, great desire. But to the 3 in verse 7, he said, "Therefore, more blessed are ye." For having that desire.
And actually, in verse 16, when I was trying to find, and now if your joy will be great with one soul that you have brought into me and into the kingdom of my Father, how great will be your joy if you should bring many souls unto me.
Yeah.
So they truly found that joy.
Yeah.
I mean, how joyful is it to see someone change? We're talking about
that
translation,
exactly.
transfigured, and all that, but actually see somebody in a mortal body throw away their natural man and actually change. And
so that's a good point, Andrew. All 12 got to experience that. It's just that the 3 decided to keep on going until Christ comes again.
Yeah.
And so that's what Christ was saying. He's not saying how much more blessed are you, how much better are you. He's not saying that. He was just saying how much more joy are you going to gain. That's great. You're gonna stay here and continue to do the work, and the work brings joy. So That's all he was saying. He doesn't say, okay, so that puts you a little bit here and puts these guys here. It's nothing like that. Yeah. It's not that at all. And so that's a very interesting point there, and that's true.
And in verses 27, 28, and 29, he points out that they would go among all peoples of the earth, Jews, Gentiles, all kindreds, tongues, all the scattered and lost tribes of Israel, and that they shall be not known among those people.
Yep.
So do y'all have any good Three Nephite stories?
So I have a book I was looking over.
I have not seen them that I know of.
Hey, I'll throw this out there. If anybody listening has any cool stories, you should go to the Saints in the South podcast group on Facebook and
that's right.
Share it with us.
Absolutely.
Let us know your cool three. Hey, I know lots of people have cool Three Nephite stories. If you heard one or think you've seen one or more of them yourself.
That's right.
They're floating out there for sure. They're out there. I haven't heard one from a general authority. Yeah, I actually, to tell you the truth, I've never ever heard one from a general authority live. I've read in this book I have back in the day, Wilford Woodruff and different ones.
Yeah.
But what are their names?
We don't know.
Mormon wanted to tell Mormon us. Almost wrote him, but he didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, but yeah. So, anyways, someone predicted it there in Kirtland. There was a elder. They had a conference there, and one guy said their names, but I don't want to say their names because
you've been commanded not to.
So for those that are non-members, it is in the New Testament, King James Version, New Testament of John, the beloved, the apostle of Jesus. It is in there. It's in John 21 through 23, and that's where he was saying, and Peter was talking to the Lord, and he actually asked of John, because Peter had just received his mission from the Lord, and the Lord kind of told him what was going to happen to him. Pretty much told Peter, you're going to be done pretty much how I was done. You're going to be killed, crucified even as I was. And so that's got to be pretty scary. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, and so Peter looks over to John and he says, what of this man? What of him?
Yeah, but what was
and he's like, what's up with him? What's he going to do? Because he kind of knows something's up. And Jesus saith unto him, if I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? Follow thou me. In other words, you tell Peter, don't worry about him. If I tell him that he's not going to die and he's going to continue to tarry until I come again, in other words, he's talking about his second coming, which hasn't happened yet. And he says in verse 23, then went the saying abroad among the men that the disciples should not die. Yet Jesus said unto him, he shall not die. But if I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? That's pretty cool. I mean, it's there,
Yep,
and it's just pretty interesting You know, so what we're talking about here in the Book of Mormon, the three Nephites, this is not
unprecedented.
Unprecedented, exactly. Like as we discussed, you know, John the Beloved had already done this. So,
you think they ever hang out?
I think so. I would say yes. I mean, there's not many people like them. I wouldn't think.
Yeah, it'd be hard for them not to at some point. You know,
there. I was trying my hardest over
the centuries. You know, at some point they're gonna be like, we should go.
Joseph Smith mentioned in a conference.
Oh, John over here.
That's right. Joseph Smith mentioned John in a conference or something and told of his location where he was. I cannot find the story. He was preaching and he was saying something. He said, even John the Beloved, he said, which is over in the, I want to say he said in the, I forgot what part of the world, some other country. He said, and at this moment is gathering Israel. That's what he said. That's all he said about it. But I was trying to find the reference.
So say that again. So
Joseph Smith. Joseph
met
Smith
John Beloved?
No, not that he met him. He just mentioned
where he was
and said where he was, as if, you know, he's just a guy like me saying like, you know, whoever President so-and-so is over in Colombia right now. You know what? I mean, that's the way he just sort of mentioned it almost in passing about the gathering of Israel. And
you got a reference on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it, man.
So there's a story about Far West, but I'll butcher it, so I'm not going. But I mean, there are stories out there. You have to really dig in and research it, because that's one thing. I'll be honest, it's one thing I don't hear much anymore. Is the three Nephites. Do y'all ever hear much about it anymore? To tell you the truth, when I got to this part, I actually forgot about it till I got to this part again. As a kid, I always thought it was super cool, but.
It's interesting. It's kind of like become part of Mormon folklore or something.
Right.
Almost like there's lots of people you never really hear about it discussed from general authorities, you know, from the pulpit or anything. But it's something that everybody knows about and kind of talks about in, you know, hushed tones.
That's right.
So I found the reference. It says, in a conference of the church on June 3rd, 1831, the prophet Joseph Smith taught concerning John's ministry. So he has of course met John because of the restoration of the Melchizedek priesthood. He, you know, with Peter, James, and John being there, he doesn't know him. But he says this. He says at this conference, he says, John the Revelator was then among the 10 tribes of Israel who had been led away by Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, to prepare them for their return from their long dispersion. So he was among the 10 tribes of Israel that had been led away by the king of Assyria to prepare them for their for their return. So he was out gathering Israel in this whatever part of the world, and that's what he mentioned in the thing. So in the conference, I thought, how cool is that? So that's in the history of the church. So pretty cool.
Very cool.
So Mormon, you know, he was about to write the names of those who were never to taste death, but the Lord forbade. Therefore, I write them not, for they are hid from the world. But Three Nephites, a book I bought years ago, April 10th, 1843, at a special conference. The purpose of the conference was ordaining many elders. There was a guy named Oliver B. Huntington. And from his personal history, which is housed in the Special Collections Library at the Brigham Young University in Provo, page 43, it's wrote down that I'm willing to state that the names of the three Nephites who do not sleep in the earth are Jeremiah, Zedekiah, and Kumanoi or something. But anyways, it's just interesting. Again, this was a book that I bought years ago at the bookstore. And and it's housed there in BYU, someone who wrote it in their journal. But again, there must be a reason why we don't know the names, because Mormon was going to write them down, but the Lord commanded him not. So it's not really important. It's just fun facts to talk about, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways,
but it's also interesting too. I mean, that these are people. These aren't like if you met up with them, it's not like they're going to be, and it's up to them. However, the Lord wants you to be able to see them. They can be a glorified looking, I'm sure, being, and you know, of course, it's all depends on how it is. But more than likely, they're going to be, like hidden from the Gentiles. In other words, we're not going to recognize or notice anything special. You know what I mean? Like, unless the Lord needs us to see that for some reason. But they're out. They're basically, their mission right now is out to preach the gospel and to gather Israel. It's the same mission we have, and that's what they're doing. And so it's just pretty cool.
Yeah. So their names were mentioned earlier. That. The 12 disciples there. So, I mean, they are in that bunch. It's just
their names are there. Which three are they?
Yeah. And again, it's not essential to your salvation, but it's fun to talk about and speculate. And
it's cool.
And anyways, but again, it was wrote down and kept there in a journal entry there. It's at BYU there. So anyways, as I was.
One of the other things that jumped out to me in these chapters were the contrast between Christ and what he had just experienced, with the ridiculing, the imprisonment, the suffering, being spit upon, hung upon a cross, all that, and everything he went through to now being among the Nephites here, and everyone that was there. Yeah. Thousands of people were so joyous to be there and to be in his presence. And it references here the joy of Christ and how he felt being there.
Yeah. These people had great faith. That was just like in the earlier chapters that he told them straight up, like you're witnessing greater miracles than those folks on the other side of the world did, because they didn't have your faith. These people had tremendous faith.
Yeah, there's one thing about it, man. I think it was I was reading some John, by the way, over some of these chapters, 4th Nephi, etc. I mean, in reality, the way I look at 4th Nephi, it's sort of I'm going to go Stephen Hutchinson here. It's a microcosm of the millennium in a way. The 1,000 years of peace that we are to experience. Satan will be bound. And so here's sort of a microcosm of that in 4th Nephi. Christ has come in 3rd Nephi and taught his gospel and laid out his gospel. He's introduced the sacrament, which they knew nothing of at that point until now, because it had only recently been instituted by Christ. So all these things, they got the scriptures from Malachi. So there's a lot of things going on, and they got all these teachings, eyewitnesses, people that see Christ, that are with Christ and mingle with Christ, however you want to say it. And so there's a reason there's 4 generations that continue in peace, because as John, by the way, said, he believes, and this is his theory, is that because after about the 4th generation is when all the eyewitnesses were probably gone. They'd probably all passed away at that point. And so when you got grandparents, I don't know my great-great-grandparents. I don't know them. I do know my grandparents. And so if I've got my grandparents there telling me, these things that they saw, I'm going to be like, wow, and it's really going to mean something to me. But eventually those eyewitnesses, if I become that, I wasn't there, but I can tell you this, and it helps, and it continues to fade eventually,
Age, yeah.
But here's the thing, it's like a microcosm of the millennium, because now all this peace and everything's happening for all this time. And why is there peace? It's because they are righteous. They are not given power to Satan. When we talk about Satan being bound in the millennium, it's not with literal chains or put in a dungeon or something. It's because of our righteousness. We'll give no heed to Satan. And that's what's happening here. And of course, we know afterwards, after about 200 years or something, things start turning around, because people start fading. That 4th generation's
184, I believe it is.
Yep.
Is when it first mentions that.
Yep.
And they are in verse 3 of 4th Nephi. It says, and they had all things common among them. Therefore, there were no rich and poor, or bond and free, but they were all made free and partakers of the heavenly gift. It sounds a lot like the law of consecration was being lived.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No keeping up with the Joneses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love that it says in that verse that they were all made free. And you think, wait a minute, didn't Captain Moroni sort of establish the freedom thing? But what I think it's in John I wrote it down. John 8:32. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And so I think it was just because they were free from sin and ignorance. I think they just finally got it. And it was like, this is liberating, like to live this way.
Yeah. And I think quite literally there was nobody robbing anybody else, right?
Absolutely.
There were no prisons or jails or anything like that. Right. They were living a consecrated life. So the law of consecration is different from the law of socialism.
Yeah. A little bit. A little bit. That's right. No, what I was going to say is that Fourth Nephi covers, think about this, one chapter. Fourth Nephi covers 285 years. I mean, if you go into the book of Alma, go in there and cover 285. I don't remember how many chapters you'd have to go through to cover 285 years in the book of Alma. But here we are, Fourth Nephi, 285 years, and you wonder, why is it so short? Why did they only put it in that? And it's because there was nothing to talk about.
Exactly. No drama.
Was cool.
Yeah. No drama.
It was basically live the gospel and you'll be blessed. And here it is.
Yep.
So what do I say? There's no wars. There's no contentions. There's no,
Yeah, Fox News and CNN, they would not have succeeded back then. They didn't have anything to report.
Not at all. It's definitely an inspiring beginning, but a disheartening ending for sure.
It does. It does eventually, like I say, after that fourth generation, man, after they,
And Christ tells them that.
Yeah.
He specifically tells them that, you know, after that amount of time, it's gonna come crumbling down.
Yeah. So, Satan's going to be bound as long as we're righteous and do what we're supposed to do. When we start to slip, that's when we start giving him power.
That's right.
And that's what happens, Think of the escalator going up a backwards, trying to get up an escalator that's working against you. You got to work to get to the top. If you stop, a lot of people think, I don't want nothing to do with religion. I want to just sit at the house. It's pretty much impossible to just linger in one spot. You're gonna go back. You're gonna digress into something that's not good, and we see that later. It gets really bad because you can't just stay still in the gospel. You can't stay still in the world. You've got to either be moving forward or you're going to be really sliding backwards.
It's the law of entropy. It's a law of the universe. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. Is that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
Exactly. That's a profound state. It is.
Yeah.
President Henry B. Eyring, member of the First Presidency, always loved his quote: "If you are on the right path, it will always be uphill."
Yeah,
that's good. Yep.
I like it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just true. And that's what's happening in this whole first part of, this 200 and something years, it's,
man, did we skip over chapter 30 completely? Man, there's a lot of meat there.
Well, I'm glad
it's got to be Mormon. It's got to be one of the shortest chapters in all the scriptures, right?
So this is
verses in the entire chapter.
This is what I have up under chapter 30. It's the only thing I typed out. The ultimate call to repentance.
Yeah.
That's what that's all about.
Yeah, it's all condensed down and
two dense little verses. Yeah,
and
there's an entire chapter's worth in those two little verses.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And so Mormon's basically saying, hey, this is the deal. This is what you got to do. And going back. So here's what happens. Verse 2, of Fourth Nephi, verse 2. It says, and it came to pass in the 30 and 6th year, the people were all converted unto the Lord. Notice that it wasn't that they were converted into the church. They were converted into the Lord. So I think of this. Sometimes I think there's a difference. I'll just put it that way. There, you can be converted to church, or you can be converted to the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so to clarify, you can be converted to being at church. You can be converted to being somewhere on Sunday, right?
Well, so when you say that, are you talking more like a social club?
Right. Exactly. There's people that are converted to church, and there's people that are converted into the Lord, which we stated earlier were two sort of different things. You got the gospel and you got the church, the people. And so there's some people that are, I love Jeffrey R. Holland, and I watch conference because I think he's such a good, cool guy and he's such a great speaker. and that's cool. I mean, I'm not
Which
saying
is
anything wrong
true.
with that. That's me. That's me. But the thing is we can't just come away with, Jeffrey R. Holland. It should be what words of Christ, what is Christ telling me through his servant, Jeffrey R. Holland? In other words, one of the things I feel like maybe, and I have been guilty of this in the past, is presenting ourselves at church. We merely show up, or are we actually making ourselves available in the church to actually do things that the Lord would have us do? You know what I mean? Are we just merely present, or are we actually committed and converted to be ready to help build the kingdom of God? I think there's a big difference. I think of the rich young man in Mark 10, 17-30 that came up to the Lord, to the Savior. He said, "Hey, I want to be one of your disciples. What do I need to do?" Basically is what he was saying. And the Lord said, "Give up everything you got, give it all to the poor, and come with me." Well, he sort of fell out of love then with the idea of, at this moment, with the idea of, I want to be with the Savior. I want to go follow this guy. I didn't know it required all that. I'm not as converted as I probably should be. I mean, that's pretty much what happened with this guy. We don't know what happened to him later. He could have said, "Oh yeah, you know what? I will do that." But what I'm getting to is how converted
he was no John Tanner.
Right. Oh man, that guy. By the way, look at that little. I think it's a short video, right? It's like 15 minutes or something.
No, it's more like I think it's like 40 minutes, maybe.
Oh, okay.
But that's one of my favorite.
The little movie.
That is my favorite, probably my favorite, actually, all-time favorite church video.
I'd never even heard of him.
It gets me in the feels.
I'd never even heard of him, which made it even more special. I was like, wow, this guy is absolutely amazing. But anyway, John Tanner's story.
He's one of the heroes of the church, man.
Absolutely.
The Lord used him to literally save, possibly, single-handedly saving the church from complete financial destruction, ruin. Yeah, it was amazing.
That dude stepped
his
up.
Faith.
Gosh. But so that's what it is. I mean, it's just, I love how it puts it there. The people were all converted unto the Lord. It wasn't like, oh, they were all good members of the church. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Which equals to that. But where is our focus? Are we just going to church because it's a feel good place and something to do? And, or is it that, hey, I need to be there to get the spiritual nourishment that I need, from the Lord? And so where's our focus when we're doing that? So we need to be converted into the Lord.
Exactly. That, again, the church and gospel, the gospel, it hasn't changed, trust in the Lord, have faith, repentance, baptism, receive the gift of the Holy Ghost, and endure to the end. It's pretty simple,
Yep.
And,
that's right.
And really be converted. I mean, y'all know my opinion. I've never been big on boundaries or ward boundaries where you live or whatever, but if the church come out tomorrow and right in front of your house said you had to go to the next ward or branch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a question. Would you do it, or are you too involved with the social of that ward or branch? I mean, it's a good question to ask yourself. It's true. A good question to ask yourself.
Think about with this quarantine, man. I mean, a lot of people, it's been hard on them that they're not in the social aspect, and that is a big part of church. That is part of church. I'm not downplaying it, but what I'm getting to is the people that are truly converted to the Lord are still experiencing spiritual things. They're having spiritual moments and spiritual experiences. I understand everybody's situation is different and there's different things going on, but what I'm getting to is if you're converted to the Lord, you're good, you're okay, but if you're merely converted to just the church, in other words, just the people or the social aspect or the building itself or whatever it is that's not so much the Savior, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult when things arise in your life that are absolutely challenging. You're going to have a hard time with those things.
Yeah.
If you're only converted to that bishop, or you're only converted to those missionaries that taught you, or if you're only converted to, so there's a difference. And I think that's why that, perhaps Mormon decided to put in there they were converted unto the Lord and not just like his church, or whatever.
Yeah.
I just think it's very interesting.
It's easier to jump over those obstacles.
Yes.
If you trust in the Lord and converted to him,
Absolutely.
So,
that's true. That is absolutely true. The Lord gives us these hardships and these things and these challenges so that we'll remember him. I mean, we got to stay humble. We got to, that's the reason these things happen. And I mean, it's not always that he causes them to happen. A lot of times it's just our choices, obviously, that cause a lot of things that we go through. But yeah, I mean, the whole purpose is to get us to go, oh yeah, I need to put my focus where it's supposed to be. Basically simply maintaining our church membership, through attendance won't be enough at the last day. I mean, we've got to really step up. As we see here in 4th Nephi, we can't just, we didn't have, my great grandmother did not, that I know of, stand in the presence of the Savior and dwell with him for a few days or a few weeks or however long. But yet here's a record that shows that there were people that did, and yet still, after 200 some odd years, they all forget, or they don't, but the generations forget. And you think there's something to that. That means we're not immune to, just because we're members of the church doesn't mean we can say, oh, I'm good now and I don't have to put much effort in. We've got to continuously drive and push, endure to the end, keep striving, all those things. But we got to continue to put that effort in. If we don't, we can slip backwards. We should never think too highly of ourselves. I'm speaking for myself, especially. We have to put in that effort, and we got to really step it up in the last days, here and get ready. So
that's right, man. That sounds like a good motto, man. Y'all keep on striving.
Yeah, we should say something like that.
Yeah,
we should say that. Why don't we put that on a shirt?
On striving,
idea.
That's funny. Well, all right, great discussion. Until next time, y'all keep on striving.